I gave my son a $300,000 imported truck for his 40th birthday. My daughter-in-law raised her glass and with a mocking smile said a toast to the foolish mother who tries to buy love like it's cheap bread. Everyone laughed. I just smiled, got up and left without saying a word. But what I did after that night, she will never forget. If you had seen me 6 months ago, standing in the middle of that ballroom with 200 people staring at me, you would have thought I was the most pathetic woman in the world. And maybe you were right. There I was, Linda Miller, 67 years old, in my navy blue dress I had bought especially for that night, holding the keys to a black Mercedes-Benz G-Wagon worth $300,000, while my daughter-in-law raised her glass of French champagne. "A toast!" shouted Valerie, with that voice she perfected in her failed acting classes, to the foolish mother who tries to buy love like it's cheap bread. The Emperor Ballroom at the Grand Hyatt erupted in laughter. Nervous laughter from some cruel cackles from others. My son Robert looked down, clenched his fists, but said nothing. He never said anything when she spoke. Do you know what it feels like when 200 pairs of eyes pierce you with pity? It's like they're slowly tearing off your skin. The live band I had hired stopped playing. The Dutch flowers decorating the tables seemed to wilt with my humiliation. Even the giant red bow I had put on the truck seemed to mock me. But I just smiled, a small, almost imperceptible smile. I took off the heels I had worn to look taller, left them right there on the Italian marble stage, and walked barefoot toward the exit, while my navy blue dress swept the floor. I didn't say a word. Not one. Valerie kept laughing, toasting, celebrating her victory. My son kept staring at the floor. The guests murmured, but none of them, absolutely none, imagined what I had begun to plan at that exact moment. You see, when you've built an empire from scratch, when you've survived the death of a husband, when you've raised a son alone while kneading dough at 3 a.m. to pay the rent, you learn that silence is not weakness. Silence is the most powerful weapon there is. That night, while everyone celebrated my humiliation, I had already decided that Valerie Miller was going to learn the true meaning of losing everything. Not in a day, not in a week, but slowly, piece by piece, until she had nothing left but the ashes of her own arrogance. The Mercedes-Benz G-Wagon was still shining under the ballroom lights when I left. $300,000 that everyone thought I had wasted in a pathetic attempt to win back my son's love. How wrong they were. That truck wasn't a gift, it was the bait, and Valerie, in her infinite arrogance, had taken the hook so forcefully that she could never let go. My name is Linda Miller. I'm 67 years old, and this is the story of how I destroyed the woman who tried to destroy me. But for you to understand the magnitude of what I did, I need to tell you everything from the beginning, from the day that Viper entered my life with her designer heels and crocodile tears. Because what nobody knew that night, what not even my own son suspected, was that I had been recording every conversation, documenting every lie, preparing every move for 5 long years. The truck was just the bait. The real show was about to begin. And if you think you know the end of this story, you're wrong. Because there are secrets in my family that even I didn't know until recently. Secrets that would change everything. Secrets that would make that night of the toast look like child's play compared to what was coming. But before I tell you how it all ended, you need to know how it began. How a widow who sold pastries in the old market district ended up owning 22 bakeries. And how her only son, her pride, her reason for living, ended up married to a devil dressed in Versace. If you're ready to hear this story, if you really want to know how far a mother can go when pushed to the limit, then subscribe now, because what's coming will leave you breathless. This isn't just my story. It's the story of all mothers who have been belittled, humiliated, discarded. And it's proof that you never, ever underestimate a woman who has survived everything. You need to understand something. I wasn't born with money. My father Elijah was a construction worker on the South Side. My mother Rebecca washed other people's clothes on a river stone that still exists, although now it's dry. We were 7 kids sleeping in 2 rooms, sharing shoes to go to school, eating beans with salt when we had it. And when we didn't, well, just salt. I married Albert Miller at 19. He was a construction supervisor, made $200 a month, and to me, he was a prince. We moved into a tiny 2-bedroom walk-up apartment. The walls were damp, the ceiling leaked when it rained, but it was ours. Robert was born there on a September 15th, while the Independence Day fireworks lit up the sky. Albert died when I was 27. A poorly placed scaffold, they said. He fell from the 8th floor of a construction site downtown. The company thanked my dead husband with $5,000 in severance. $5,000 for a life. It wasn't even enough for the funeral. That night, with my 8-year-old baby sleeping in the bed that still smelled like his father, I made the decision that would change everything. My grandmother Hope had taught me to bake when I was a girl. It was the only thing I knew how to do well besides cry, and crying didn't pay the rent. I started by selling muffins and pastries from a basket outside the subway station. I'd get up at 2 a.m., knead until 5, bake in the neighbor's oven, who charged me $10 to use it, and by 7 a.m. I was on my corner. Robert would come with me before school. He helped me shout, "Fresh pastries! Get your warm fresh pastries!" Do you know how many times the police ran me off? How many times I had to bribe them with my day's earnings so they wouldn't take my basket? But I kept going. I always kept going. One day, Mr. Arthur Sterling, who owned 3 cafes downtown, tried my cheese croissants. He offered to buy 200 pieces daily. It was the miracle I had been waiting for. With that money, I was able to rent a tiny spot on Regina Street, 4 square meters with a used oven we bought on payments, Hope's Bakery. I named it after my grandmother. Robert grew up between flour and yeast. He did his homework on a little table next to the oven while I worked. At 15, he already knew how to make perfect bread rolls. At 18, he was doing the accounting. He was brilliant, my boy. He got his business degree at the State University, while I opened the second bakery in the historic district. By the time Robert turned 30, we already had 11 bakeries. 11. From the south side to the wealthy suburbs. We employed 87 people, mostly single women like I had been. I paid them well, gave them benefits, a full Christmas bonus. Some would cry when I gave them their first health insurance card. I understood those tears. That's when Valerie showed up. It was September 2019. I remember it perfectly because we had just opened the 12th bakery uptown. Robert arrived at the opening party with her on his arm. Tall, thin as a magazine model, with a white dress that probably cost more than what I earned in my first year selling pastries. She had that artificial beauty of women on television. A nose job, inflated lips, cheekbones that looked like they were cut with a knife. "Mom, this is Valerie, my girlfriend." The way he said, "my girlfriend," as if he had won an award, as if he had finally achieved something that I, with all my bakeries, couldn't give him. Status. Valerie hugged me that day. A long theatrical hug while whispering in my ear, "What an inspiring story you have, ma'am. From a street vendor to this? You must be so proud." Street vendor. Not an entrepreneur, not a businesswoman. A street vendor. But I smiled. Of course I smiled. My son was in love. They got married 6 months later at the old San Hipólito convent. I paid for everything. The $15,000 dress imported from Spain, the floral arrangements flown in from Amsterdam, the dinner for 400 guests where they served lobster and French wine. From Valerie's side, only 20 people came. "My family is very small," she said. "I'm practically an orphan, just like you were widowed so young." Just like me. She always found a way to compare herself to me to remind me of my tragedies. I gave them a house in the hills, a $250,000 down payment with $4,000 monthly payments that I paid faithfully. I gave them both important positions in the company, Robert as CEO, Valerie as Director of Public Relations. Although I never knew exactly what public relations she managed. The first 2 years were bearable. Valerie organized dinners where she invited her friends from the club, women who looked at her like she was their exotic pet, the one who had married the millionaire baker's son. I went to those dinners. I sat in my assigned seat, always the farthest from Valerie, and listened as she reinvented her story every time. Sometimes she was the daughter of diplomats who died in an accident. Others, her family had lost their fortune in the '94 crisis. My favorite was when she said she had turned down an international modeling career to marry Robert. "Love is worth more than any runway in Milan," she would sigh as her friends applauded her sacrifice. But I noticed things, small things, like how she never spoke of her childhood with specific details, like how she didn't have a single family photo from before she was 25, like how her accent sometimes slipped into something that wasn't American, something she quickly covered with a nervous laugh. And then there were the expenses. Good Lord, the expenses. $4,000 handbags that appeared every week. Trips to Miami for business that cost more than the annual salary of 5 employees. An office renovation that cost $150,000, more than it cost to build an entire bakery. When I mentioned something to Robert, he looked at me like I had betrayed him. "Mom, we're not in the old market district anymore. This is our life now. Valerie knows what she's doing. She understands this world better than we do." This world. The world where I apparently didn't belong. It was in the 3rd year when things started to change more obviously. Valerie convinced Robert that I needed to rest more. "Your mom has worked so hard, my love. She deserves to enjoy her old age." Old age. I was 64, and I got up at 5 in the morning to supervise production. But suddenly I was an old woman. They started excluding me from important meetings. "We don't want to stress you out, Mom." They changed suppliers without consulting me. Valerie has better contacts. They hired a strategic consultant. Valerie's cousin, of course, who charged $10,000 a month to tell us we needed to modernize. And I, foolish Linda, allowed it. Because every time I tried to protest, Robert would look at me with those tired eyes and say, "Mom, please. Valerie just wants to help. Can't you trust my wife?" Trust. What a dangerous word when your own son uses it against you. By the time the 4th year arrived, I had lost control of almost everything. I was still the owner on paper, but they made the decisions. Valerie managed the bank passwords for security. Robert signed new contracts without reading them because Valerie already reviewed them. And then the day came that changed everything. The day I heard a conversation I wasn't supposed to hear. It was a Thursday in March. I remember because I had just come from my monthly checkup. Dr. Fonseca had told me my pressure was a bit high, nothing serious, but I should reduce stress. I almost laughed in his face. Reduce stress while watching them dismantle my life company by company. I entered the house in the hills unannounced. I still had my keys, although Valerie had suggested 3 times that I return them for privacy. My privacy apparently because I had paid for the house. I heard voices in the study. Valerie was on the phone. Her voice had that sickly sweet tone she used when she was plotting something. I stayed in the hallway, pressed against the wall like a thief in my own investment. "No, my love, listen to me," Valerie said. "The old woman is perfect for the plan. Dr. Ramsey already gave me the papers. We just need 3 witnesses to confirm erratic behavior. I already have the maid and the gardener. With 1 more, we can declare her mentally incompetent." My heart stopped. I literally felt it stop beating for a second. "Robert, please. Robert does whatever I say. He's so tired of being the baker's son, he'd do anything to be his own man. The idiot doesn't realize that without Mommy's money, he's nobody." Laughter. I heard laughter on the other end of the phone. 6 months maximum, and we have everything. The 22 bakeries, the bank accounts, the properties. Everything goes to Robert, and when I divorce him next year, I get half. 11 bakeries, Fernando. 11 damn bakeries worth between 8 and 15 million each. Fernando. I never knew who Fernando was. Maybe I never will. Maybe it doesn't matter. The truck is perfect. I already convinced the moron that his mom wants to buy him something extravagant for his birthday. When she spends $300,000 on a whim like that, we'll have the perfect proof that she's losing her mind. Who in their right mind gifts a $300,000 truck? I slid down the wall until I was sitting on the floor. The cold marble chilled me through my dress. My son, my Robert, the child I carried for 9 months, who I nursed at these breasts, who I raised by selling pastries in the rain. Did he know about this? "Oh, don't be dramatic, Fernando. We're not going to kill her. We're just going to put her in Sunnyside Meadows. It's a luxury asylum upstate. It even has a mountain view. She'll live out her last years doped up and happy. It's more than that street vendor deserves." I stood up in silence. Every muscle in my body was shaking, but not from fear, from fury, from that cold fury you only feel when you realize you've been blind by choice. I left the house without making a sound. I drove to my downtown high-rise, the one place I hadn't let them touch, and I poured myself a whiskey, then another, and another. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in my living room looking at photos of Robert as a baby, as a child, as a teenager, searching for the exact moment I lost him. Where my son became the puppet of a woman we didn't even know. The next day I did 3 things. First, I visited my trusted lawyer, Mr. Harold Malone. I asked him for copies of all my legal documents, deeds, articles of incorporation, everything. "Any problem, Mrs. Miller?" he asked. "Prevention, Mr. Malone, just prevention." Second, I hired a private investigator, David Reed, ex-military specialist in corporate fraud. I gave him an envelope with $10,000 in cash and a single instruction. I want to know everything about Valerie Herrera. Everything. Third, and this was the hardest, I started to act. If they wanted a senile old woman, I would give them exactly that. I started slowly. I forgot names of employees I'd known for years. I got confused about important dates. Once I showed up at a board meeting in slippers pretending I forgot to change. I saw the look of satisfaction in Valerie's eyes. I saw how she squeezed Robert's hand as if to say, "See, I told you." Meanwhile, David did his job. The first piece of information arrived in 2 weeks. Valerie Herrera did not exist before 2015. No school records, no birth certificate, no credit history. It was as if she had appeared out of nowhere at age 25. The second piece was more interesting. There was a Valerie Herrera, but she had died in 2014 in a bus accident in Chiapas. Same date of birth, same place of origin, my daughter-in-law claimed. Someone had stolen a dead woman's identity. The third piece was the bombshell. Her real name was Alma Patricia Daniels, born in Caracas, Venezuela. She came to the U.S. in 2014 fleeing fraud charges. She had scammed 3 families in Caracas, posing as the heiress to an oil fortune. But the best part, the absolutely delicious part, was what David discovered in the 4th week. Alma Patricia Daniels was married. Legally married since 2013 to a George Louis Martin in Maracaibo, Venezuela. She never got divorced, which meant her marriage to my son was completely illegal. I had everything I needed to destroy her, but I wasn't going to do it quickly. No. She had planned my slow, meticulous destruction. I would do exactly the same. I continued to play my part, every day a little more confused, a little more fragile. Valerie was so sure of her victory that she let her guard down. She started to be more obvious with her contempt, more cruel with her comments. Once at a family dinner, she served me food on a plastic plate while everyone else used the porcelain china. "It's just that you drop things sometimes, mother-in-law. We don't want any accidents." Robert said nothing. He just looked at his plate and kept eating. Another time she found me looking at old photo albums and snatched them from me. "Oh, Mrs. Miller, living in the past isn't healthy. You have to look forward." Then she threw them in the trash in front of me. They were the only photos I had of Albert. I rescued them from the trash that night, crying with rage, not sadness. And then came the conversation about the truck. "Mom," Robert said to me one day, with Valerie clinging to his arm like a tick, "my 40th birthday is coming up. I know you've always wanted to give me something special." "Of course, son. What do you want?" Valerie stepped forward. "We saw a beautiful Mercedes-Benz G-Wagon. It would be the perfect gift from a loving mother." "How much does it cost?" $300,000, Valerie said with that viper's smile. "But you can afford it, right, mother-in-law? After all, he's your only son." I looked her directly in the eyes. For the first time in months, I let the mask of the senile old woman drop, and I looked at her for what she was. My prey. "Of course, Valerie. I will give my son exactly what he deserves." She interpreted my look as defeat. How wrong she was. I bought the truck, but I also made other purchases. I installed cameras in every bakery in my apartment, even in my handbag. I hired 2 additional notaries to prepare documents that Valerie would never see coming. I opened bank accounts at 3 different banks where I moved funds she didn't know existed. And most importantly, I started recording. Everything, every conversation, every humiliation, every lie. Robert's birthday was approaching. Valerie organized the most ostentatious party you can imagine. She invited all the high society people she wanted to impress. She spent $100,000 just on the planning. "It's going to be the night of our lives," she told me the day before. "The night everyone will see who really rules this family." She was right. It would be exactly that. But she didn't know I had an ace up my sleeve, an ace I had been saving, feeding, and preparing for months. The night of the birthday arrived, and with it the beginning of the end for Valerie, or should I say, Alma Patricia Daniels. The first 5 years of Robert's marriage were a masterpiece of manipulation. Valerie didn't arrive destroying, she arrived building. Building an image, a narrative, an invisible prison around my son. She started with small, almost imperceptible details. She called me 3 times a day. "Mother-in-law, have you had breakfast? I sent your favorite pastry with the driver. Mrs. Miller Robert is worried you haven't taken your vitamins. Mommy Linda." Yes, she started calling me Mommy. "I found a wonderful doctor for your knees." Every call was a performance. I knew it because when she hung up, Grace, my trusted housekeeper for 30 years, told me how Valerie mocked me as soon as the call ended. "Stubborn old woman," she heard her say once. "She thinks I'm her personal nurse." But in front of Robert, it was different. That's when her best performance shone. She had memorized my recipes. When he came home tired from work, she would serve him my special brisket, "just like your mom's, my love." A lie. She bought it from a restaurant in Santa Fe and reheated it. I saw the receipt in her trash once. $150 for brisket she passed off as her own. She organized Sunday family dinners where she invited me to her house, my house, the one I paid for, and sat me at the head of the table while she served. "You've worked so much, ma'am. Now it's my turn to take care of this family." The neighbors saw her and commented on how devoted she was, what an example of love. No one saw when she served me the scraps. No one noticed my coffee was always cold. No one realized the flowers she supposedly sent me every week were the leftovers from her social events. But her masterpiece, her true genius, was how she isolated Robert from me without him noticing. "My love, your mom looks tired. Let's not bother her with company problems." "Robert, your mom needs to rest. I'll take care of bringing her the reports." "Honey, don't tell her about the bank loan. You'll just worry her." Each sentence was a brick in the wall she built between us. And Robert, exhausted from working 12-hour days, grateful to have a wife who, worried about his mother, accepted everything. Valerie was also smart with money. She didn't steal blatantly. No, that would have been too obvious. Instead, she created a foundation. Women Entrepreneurs of America. Beautiful name, right? Every month, the company donated $25,000 to that foundation. To help women like you, mother-in-law, those who start from the bottom. The foundation existed, of course. It even held events. Events where Valerie shined in $10,000 dresses, talking about her commitment to working women, while 90% of the money disappeared into administrative expenses. Her cousin was the treasurer, her best friend the secretary, her stylist, yes, she had a stylist, was the corporate image coordinator with a $4,000 monthly salary. And then there were the bakery renovations. Modernization, she called it. She replaced the stone ovens we had used for 30 years with Italian ones that cost triple and produced soulless bread. She reformed the traditional facades into something that looked like it was from a pretentious architecture magazine. "We need to attract millennials, mother-in-law." Sales started to drop. Longtime customers complained. "The bread doesn't taste the same," Linda, Doña Lupita, who had been buying from our first bakery since 1995, told me. But when I mentioned it to Robert, Valerie intervened. "It's resistance to change, Mommy Linda. It's normal. You'll see in a few months sales will double." They doubled, yes. Downwards. By the 3rd year, we had lost 30% of our regular customers. But the reports Valerie showed Robert said otherwise. She had learned to put makeup on numbers just like she put makeup on her face every morning. and then her psychological campaign against me began. "Mrs. Miller, don't you remember you already paid me this," when she had never asked for money. "Mother-in-law, yesterday you told me I could change the uniforms when we had never talked about uniforms. Mommy, are you sure we didn't agree on this in the meeting when I hadn't even been to that meeting?" She planted seeds of doubt. She made me question my own memory. Once she even moved my keys, my purse, my glasses, and then found them in absurd places. "Here are your glasses, mother-in-law, in the refrigerator. See why I worry about you." Robert started to look at me differently, with concern, with pity. My own son looked at me as if I were a ticking time bomb. "Mom, maybe you should see a specialist." "Mom, Valerie says you've been forgetting things." "Mom, are you sure you're okay?" And I, who could have shown him the recordings I already had by then, who could have revealed who his wife really was, stayed silent. Because I needed Valerie to get comfortable. I needed her to lower her guard completely. The mask of the perfect daughter-in-law only fell when we were alone. That's when the real Alma Patricia appeared. The plan to declare me mentally incompetent began on a Tuesday in October. I remember because Valerie showed up at my apartment with Dr. Ramsey, a psychiatrist, who seemed more interested in his Rolex watch than my mental health. "It's just a routine evaluation, mother-in-law, just to be sure everything is fine." The doctor asked me questions for 2 hours. What day was it? Who was the president? How much was 17 plus 38? I answered everything perfectly, but I noticed how Valerie was signaling him when I wasn't looking directly. "The patient shows initial signs of senile dementia," the bastard ruled as he put away his recorder. "I recommend constant supervision and an evaluation of her capacity to handle financial decisions." They paid him $15,000 for that false diagnosis. I know because I hacked Valerie's email. Well, not me. Grace's son, who studied computer science, did it for $2,500 and the promise of a lifetime job for his mother. After the doctor came the manufactured incidents. Valerie started organizing meals where she put me in impossible situations. She'd serve me boiling soup, and when I burned my tongue and spat it out, she'd tell everyone, "Oh, she can't control her reflexes anymore." She'd give me children's utensils, and when I asked for others, she'd sigh dramatically. It's the 3rd time this week she's forgotten how to use normal cutlery. Once at her friend's birthday, she gave me a headache pill that made me so dizzy I had to grab the walls to walk. "See, this is why we don't leave her alone. She takes the wrong medication." But the masterstroke was when she forged my signature on a $40,000 check for her ghost foundation. When I complained at the bank, she had already prepared the ground. She had told the manager with crocodile tears that her mother-in-law was losing her memory and signing things without remembering. "Mrs. Miller," the manager told me with that condescension they use with the elderly, "perhaps you should consider giving your son power of attorney to manage your finances." Robert was there watching me with a mix of shame and concern. "Mom, it's okay. It was a mistake. But I think he's right. Valerie and I can help you with this." Do you know what it feels like when your own son, your blood, your everything looks at you like you're a problem to be solved? It's like they're ripping your soul out piece by piece. That night I cried. I cried like I hadn't cried since Albert's death. But between tears, I made a decision. If they wanted a war, they would get one. I started my counterattack subtly. First, I visited Dr. Patricia Olmedo, a neurologist with 30 years of experience, and more importantly, a professional enemy of Dr. Ramsey, since he stole her research at the university. "Doctor, I need complete neurological evaluations, and I need them to be irrefutable." I underwent everything. MRIs, EEGs, 8-hour cognitive tests. The results were conclusive. My brain was healthier than many 40-year-olds. Next, I started documenting everything with an obsessive focus. Every conversation recorded on my hidden cell phone. Every document scanned in triplicate. Every bank movement backed up with screenshots and statements. I hired 3 new employees at the bakeries, women I trusted completely, who were in reality my witnesses. I paid them extra to observe and report everything Valerie did. One was a former bank employee and detected accounting irregularities that I pretended not to notice. Another was a former IRS auditor and found millions in fake invoices. The third was simply very observant and recorded Valerie taking cash from the registers when she thought no one was watching. But the smartest thing I did was hire Marina, a retired soap opera actress who now taught classes. I paid her $10,000 to teach me how to act. Yes, how to act. To feign dementia believably but not excessively. To have episodes at the exact right moments to make Valerie more confident. Once in an important meeting with investors, I pretended to confuse Valerie with my dead sister. "Rose, what are you doing here? I thought you were in Ohio." Valerie immediately seized the opportunity. "You see, gentlemen, this is why we need to restructure the company's executive power." What she didn't know was that I had recorded her phone conversation that morning where she told them exactly what I was going to do and how they should respond. The investors themselves were part of her plan. By December, Valerie was so sure of my dementia that she became careless. She spoke openly in front of me about her plans. She moved money without hiding it. She even accidentally showed me the admission papers for Sunnyside Meadows, and then feigned horror. "Oh, mother-in-law, this wasn't for you. It's for a friend's aunt." Sunnyside Meadows, $3,500 a month to keep me sedated in a 10 by 10 foot room. They had already paid the first quarter in advance. The date was set, after Robert's birthday. After the $300,000 $1,000 truck proved my mental incapacity. But I also had a date marked, and a plan I had perfected over months of humiliation and pain. The final battle was approaching, and Valerie had no idea she had already lost the war. The stripping of my assets began with Hope's Bakery in the historic district, my second branch, the one I opened with the sweat of 5 years selling pastries on the street. One Monday I arrived and found a sign, "Closed for remodeling." No one had told me. "It's a surprise we had for you, mother-in-law," Valerie told me with her hyena smile. "We're turning it into a boutique cafe. Traditional bakeries don't make money anymore." When I saw the blueprints, I almost vomited. They had destroyed the stone oven I built with my own hands. The hand-painted tiles I laid one by one. They had thrown them in the trash. In their place, minimalist white walls and a $100,000 $1,000 coffee machine. "Where are my employees?" I asked about Rosa Maria and Carmen, who had been with me for 15 years. "We let them go. They didn't know how to make cappuccinos." Let them go, as if they were defective objects. Rosa had 3 kids in college. Maria was supporting her sick mother. Carmen had just been widowed. But Valerie didn't care. The second to fall was the Southside Bakery, the most profitable one, the one that billed $150,000 a month. Valerie turned it into a gastronomic experience, where a bread roll cost $3 and came with French butter on a tiny porcelain plate. The neighborhood locals couldn't afford to shop there anymore. Her customers now were hipsters from downtown who came in Ubers to take photos for Instagram. By the time she took the third bakery, the one in the suburbs, I couldn't even cry anymore. I just watched as they dismantled my life piece by piece while I pretended not to understand what was happening. "Sign here, Mrs. Miller." "What is this, Valerie? Nothing important, mother-in-law. Just boring paperwork." Paperwork that transferred the operating rights to a company Valerie had created, VRM Gastronomic Group. Valerie and Robert Miller. My name, my legacy used to rob me. But the moment that broke my soul was when I heard Robert defend his wife. We were in his office, which used to be my office, and I had just received the sales report. We had lost 40% of our revenue in 6 months. "Son, this isn't working. The customers are leaving." "Mom, you don't understand modern business." "I don't understand, son. I built this empire from scratch." "That was 30 years ago, Mom. The world changed." Valerie bought that diploma online for $3,000. David, my investigator, had even gotten me the PayPal receipt. "Robert, please listen to me. Something is not right with your wife." That's when he exploded. My son, my baby, yelled at me for the first time in his life. "Enough, Mom. Enough attacking Valerie. She is the best thing that ever happened to me. You're just jealous because you're not the center of attention anymore. Because I don't need you anymore." Every word was a stab wound. I stood up slowly with what little dignity I had left and walked to the door. "Mom, wait, I didn't mean—" "It's okay, son. You're right. You don't need me anymore." That night in my apartment, I opened the safe hidden behind a painting of the Virgin Mary. Inside were all the documents David had gathered, the proof of Valerie's bigamy, the bank statements from the Cayman Islands where she was diverting money, the recordings where she planned my internment. But there was something else, something neither Valerie nor Robert knew. 5 years before Valerie appeared, when the business began to grow exponentially, my accountant, old Mr. Samuel, gave me some advice. Mrs. Miller, protect your assets. You never know. I followed his advice. I created a holding company in Panama, completely legal, where the real assets were. The 22 bakeries Valerie thought she controlled were just franchises. The name, the recipes, the brand rights, everything was in that holding company, and I was the sole owner. Valerie was stealing empty shells, but there was more. During the last 6 months while feigning dementia, I had been buying properties through proxies. 7 locations in the best areas of the city, and I had secretly hired all the employees Valerie had fired. Robert's birthday was approaching. Valerie had organized the party of the century. She had invited 300 people, spent $100,000 on decorations, hired a famous country band to play live. It's going to be epic, mother-in-law, she told me while reviewing the guest list. Everyone is going to see the incredible gift you're giving your son. $300,000 on a truck, such generosity. I looked her in the eyes. For a second, just 1 second, I let her see the truth. I let her see that I knew everything. But before she could process what she'd seen, I returned to my confused old woman act. Yes, my dear, I'm going to give him exactly what he deserves. Valerie laughed, a laugh that would soon freeze in her throat, because I had invited a few extra people to the party. People Valerie wasn't expecting. People who would change everything. The bomb was about to explode. Buying that Mercedes-Benz G-Wagon was the most painful and liberating moment of my life. Painful because it confirmed my son valued money more than his mother. Liberating because it was the perfect bait for my plan. I went to the Mercedes-Benz dealership downtown on a Wednesday morning. Valerie insisted on coming with me to help you not get confused, mother-in-law. She wore a red dress that screamed money and a smile that screamed victory. The salesman, a young man named Edward, attended to us with that mix of admiration and greed that luxury sellers have. Valerie immediately took control. We want the most equipped G-Wagon you have, the AMG G63, black with caramel-colored leather interior. Excellent choice, ma'am. That configuration is $312,000. Perfect, Valerie said before I could speak. My mother-in-law will pay in cash. Edward almost choked. Cash? Bank transfer, I corrected, but I want some special modifications. Valerie looked at me strangely. What modifications, mother-in-law? I want it engraved on the leather headrests for Robert with eternal love from your mother, and I want a custom license plate. Of course. What do you want the plate to say on Truth 40? Valerie laughed. Oh, mother-in-law, how clever. Truth for his 40th birthday. That wasn't why, but I let her believe what she wanted. During the 3 weeks it took to prepare the truck, Valerie was ecstatic. She told everyone about the excessive gift that poor Mrs. Miller insisted on buying. You see how she is, she told her friends at the club. She spends without control. That's why we need to protect her from herself. She organized the most ostentatious party I had ever seen. She rented the Emperor Ballroom at the Grand Hyatt, the same place where the richest politicians and business people got married. She hired the best event planners, the ones who charged $25,000 just for planning. The guest list was a show in itself. She had invited all the high society people she wanted to impress, businessmen, influencers, even a couple of soap opera actors. But above all, she had invited the potential partners Robert had been courting to expand the business. This party will be our coronation, I heard her say on the phone. After this, no one will doubt who runs the Miller Bakery empire. 3 days before the party, I sent my own invitations. Discreet, personal, hand-delivered by Grace. I invited George Louis Martin, Valerie's legal husband, who had just arrived from Venezuela after years of looking for her. David had found him driving a taxi in Tijuana, trying to save money to hire a detective. I paid for his flight, his hotel, and $500 for his presence. I invited the real Dr. Ramsey. Not the corrupt psychiatrist, but his twin brother, a prosecutor specializing in financial fraud who had been investigating his brother for 2 years for selling false diagnoses. I invited Dr. Patricia Olmedo, the neurologist, who had all my tests proving my perfect mental health, along with video evidence that I had been faking the episodes of dementia. I invited the true partners of the investors. Valerie had deceived people who had lost millions in her previous scams and had been looking for her for years. And I invited the real Valentina Herrera, who hadn't died in any accident. She was alive and well in Chiapas, very surprised to discover someone had stolen her identity and declared her dead. But my star guest was someone else. Someone no one expected. The day of the party arrived. I put on my best dress, the navy blue one. It wasn't expensive or flashy, but I looked dignified. I looked like what I was, a warrior about to win her final battle. I arrived at the ballroom early. The truck was already there, shining under the lights with a gigantic red bow that Valerie had insisted on, to make it look more like a gift mother-in-law. The guests began to arrive. Valerie shone like never before in a $10,000 gold dress she had bought with my bakery money. She kissed cheeks, handed out smiles, made sure everyone knew who the real hostess was. Robert arrived an hour late, as she had planned. To make a grand entrance, she had said. When he entered, the live band started playing the waiter's uncorked champagne, and Valerie led him to the truck. "Look, everyone," Valerie shouted, taking the microphone. "The gift from a loving mother to her only son." That's when I stood up and walked toward them. Everyone fell silent. I took the truck keys, which were in a crystal box, and approached the microphone. "Before I give this gift," I said in a clear voice, "I want to make a toast." Valerie handed me a glass with a condescending smile. "Of course, mother-in-law." "Say a few words." I raised my glass and looked directly into my son's eyes. "I toast to the truth, because the truth, even when it hurts, always comes to light." That's when my special guests appeared. While Valerie plotted my destruction, I wasn't alone. I had allies she never saw coming, women who had been watching in silence, waiting for the exact moment to act. The first was Grace, my trusted housekeeper. But Grace was much more than an employee. She was my soul sister, the one who helped me raise Robert when I worked 18-hour days. Her son Michael, the one who's now a systems engineer, grew up with Robert. They were like brothers until Valerie arrived and convinced my son it wasn't appropriate to hang out with the help. Grace had been recording everything, every humiliation, every theft, every lie. She had an old cell phone hidden in her apron and had documented 3 years of abuse, videos of Valerie taking money from the cash registers, audio of her mocking me with her friends, photos of documents she signed forging my handwriting. "Mrs. Linda," she told me one night crying, "it breaks my heart to see how she treats you. And little Robert, oh, little Robert is lost." The second ally was a surprise even to me. Christina Dunn, Valerie's best friend. Yes, the same one who laughed at all the humiliations, who applauded her cruelties. It turns out Christina had also been a victim of Valerie. She sought me out one afternoon at my apartment, trembling like a leaf. "Mrs. Miller, I need to talk to you. Valerie stole $150,000 from me." The story was predictable. Valerie had convinced her to invest in a business importing designer handbags. The business didn't exist. The money disappeared. And when Christina confronted her, Valerie threatened to destroy her marriage by revealing a fabricated affair. "I have all the messages, the transfers, the fake contracts," Christina told me, handing me a USB drive. "But there's more. Valerie has a secret account where she keeps everything she steals. The password is her first husband's birthday." Her first husband, George Lewis, the one she was still legally married to. The third ally was the most unexpected. My notary, Ms. Rebecca Montgomery. A woman in her 60s, tough as steel, who had seen too many cases of manipulative wives destroying family fortunes. "Linda," she told me in her office overlooking the city, "what's happening is criminal, and I have an idea." Her idea was brilliant. While Valerie thought she was transferring the bakeries to her name, she was actually signing documents that didn't say what she thought they said. Rebecca had used an ancient legal trick. The transfers required a second validation signature that never came. All the papers Valerie had forged were legally invalid. Furthermore, Rebecca added with a scary smile, I have a cousin in the Financial Crimes Division. He'll be very interested in your daughter-in-law's ghost foundation. But my most valuable ally was someone Valerie had forgotten existed. Rosa Maria Daniels, her own mother. David found her in Caracas, living in a charity shelter. Valerie, or Alma Patricia, her real name, had abandoned her 10 years ago, telling her she was going to marry a Mexican millionaire and would come back for her. My daughter was always ambitious. Rosa Maria told me via video call, tears in her eyes. Since she was a child, she lied, stole, manipulated. I thought she would change. But when she stole her father's life savings and let him die unable to pay for the hospital, I knew I had raised a monster. Rosa Maria had something invaluable, Alma Patricia's original birth certificate, her school records where she had been expelled for theft, and most importantly, an active arrest warrant from Venezuela for fraud. Mrs. Miller, she said, help me come to the U.S. I want to see my daughter's face when she knows her mother is alive and willing to testify against her. I paid for her flight, put her up in a discreet hotel, and prepared her for the party. Meanwhile, I continued perfecting my performance. Every day I seemed more confused, more fragile. Valerie was so drunk on her upcoming victory that she didn't notice when I installed cameras in her house. She didn't see when I copied all the files from her computer. She didn't realize her phone was tapped. A week before the birthday, I heard her talking to Fernando. After the party, we put the old woman in the asylum. I already have the orderlies hired. They'll come at 3 a.m. when everyone is drunk. They'll take her sedated, and by the time Robert wakes up, his mom will already be at Sunnyside Meadows. What if the son objects? He won't object. I'll tell him his mother tried to commit suicide. I have sleeping pills I'm going to put in her purse. With that and the truck incident, any judge will side with us. I listened to my civil death sentence with a calm that surprised me. I didn't feel fear. I didn't feel sadness. I only felt a cold determination. That night I called all my allies. The day of the party, I need you to be ready. We are going to give Valerie the show of her life. Christina confirmed she would bring the fraud evidence. Rebecca would have the legal documents ready. Rosa Maria would be waiting in a hotel room. Grace's son Michael would have all the recordings on a laptop connected to the ballroom screens. And I had the final bombshell, something I had discovered just 2 days before that would change everything. Valerie wasn't just married to George Lewis. She was pregnant by Fernando, her lover. The father was not Robert. The war was about to end, and I had all the weapons. 3 nights before Robert's birthday, I drove alone to Dallas. I told everyone I was visiting a sick cousin. A lie. I was going to see Mr. Alejandro Torres, the best notary in Texas, and by divine coincidence, my late husband, Albert's first cousin. "Linda, are you sure about this?" he asked after reviewing the documents I brought. "More sure than ever, Alejandro. My son chose his path. Now I choose mine." That night I signed a new will, one that nobody knew about, one that would leave Valerie and Robert with exactly what they deserved. But the will was only part of the plan. The truly brilliant part was what I had been building in secret for the last 5 years, while everyone thought I was a helpless old woman. You see, when I started to suspect Valerie, I opened a parallel company, Hopeful Horizons Bakery, Inc., registered in the name of a trust of which I was the sole beneficiary. While Valerie was stealing from the bakeries, she knew I was building an empire she never detected. 7 new bakeries in Dallas, Atlanta, and Denver, all managed by the employees Valerie had fired for incompetence. Rosa Maria Carmen, all of them were now managers with profit sharing. They were billing $400,000 a month, money that went directly into accounts that only I knew about. But that wasn't all. During my medical visits to Houston, which Valerie thought were for dementia treatments, I was actually closing deals with American investors. I had sold the international franchise of my recipes for $15 million. Yes, dollars. The money was in a trust in Texas untouchable by her waiting for my signal. Mrs. Miller, Jim Patterson, the CEO of American Bakery Corporation, told me, "Your recipes are pure gold. We're going to open 50 locations in California and Texas." While I was signing that contract, Valerie was in Mexico stealing crumbs. Back in my apartment, I opened the safe behind the Virgin Mary painting. Inside, along with all the documents I had collected, I added the new will. But there was also something else. A letter for Robert. A letter I had rewritten 100 times and would only deliver if things went as I expected. Son. The letter began, "When you read this, you will probably hate me, but I prefer your honest hatred to your manipulated love." The day before the party, I put the last pieces of the puzzle in place. First, I visited my bank and transferred $300,000 to a special account. It wasn't for the truck. That was already paid for. It was for something much better. Next, I met with the real employees of Sunnyside Meadows, the asylum where Valerie planned to intern me. "Dr. Marquez," I told the director, "my daughter-in-law paid 3 months in advance to have me interned against my will. Here is the receipt." I showed him the copy I had taken from Valerie's purse. "This is kidnapping, and you would be accomplices." The man turned pale. "Mrs. Miller, we didn't know. She said you had signed the papers." "A lie, but I'll offer you a deal. You will do exactly what I am about to ask, and I will not report you. In fact, I'll pay you double what she gave you." The plan was simple. When the orderlies came for me, they would be taking someone else, someone who had agreed to help me for $5,000 and the promise of a long vacation. That night, the last one before the birthday, I couldn't sleep. I sat on my balcony watching the city lights, drinking a cinnamon tea like my grandmother Hope taught me. At 3 a.m., my phone buzzed. It was a voicemail from Valerie sent by mistake, or perhaps wanting to torture me. "Fernando, my love, after tomorrow we're free. The old woman goes to the asylum, Robert is left with the guilt and the debts, and we go to Switzerland with all the money. The baby will be born in Europe, far from this hell. I love you." The baby. The child my son believed was his. I took my recorder and saved that message. It was the last piece of evidence I needed. The birthday dawned sunny, without a cloud in the sky. It was March 15th. Curiously, the Ides of March, the day Julius Caesar was assassinated. How fitting. I showered slowly, did my hair carefully, put on the navy blue dress. In the mirror, I saw Linda Miller, not the victim Valerie had created, but the warrior I always was. Before leaving, I made one last call. "Grace, activate the plan. It's time." Somewhere in the city, my allies were getting ready. The ballroom screens had been hacked by Michael Grace's son. The videos were ready to play. The special guests were in position. And I, with the truck keys in my purse next to a USB drive containing 3 years of documented crimes, headed to the party. Valerie thought that night would be my final humiliation. She had no idea it would be hers. When I entered the Emperor Ballroom, Valerie was already in her element, receiving guests like a queen, her gold dress sparkling under the crystal chandeliers. Robert was by her side, uncomfortable in his tuxedo, smiling that forced smile he wore when she paraded him like a trophy. "There's the star of the night," Valerie shouted when she saw me with that fake voice she used in public. "The generous mother who gives away $300,000 trucks." 200 pairs of eyes turned to me, some with mockery, others with pity, most with the cruel fascination of those who enjoy watching others fall. I approached slowly, smiling. Valerie hugged me theatrically for the cameras. "Your time is up, mother-in-law," she whispered in my ear. "After tonight, everyone will know you're crazy." "You're right," I whispered back. "After tonight, everyone will know the truth." She laughed, thinking I was delirious. The dinner unfolded according to her script. Valerie had prepared everything to make me look bad. My plate was different from the others, pureed food because Ma'am has trouble chewing. My glass had water while everyone drank wine. She can't drink with her medication. My chair was set apart from the main table, so she's more comfortable. Each humiliation was met with nervous giggles from the guests. I saw some important businessmen exchange glances. I saw the partners' wives whispering, all thinking the same thing, poor senile old woman. At 10 o'clock, it was time for the toast. Valerie took the microphone with her glass of $150 a bottle Moet and Chandon. "A toast!" she shouted, her voice trained to feign emotion, "to the foolish mother who tries to buy love like it's cheap bread." The ballroom erupted in laughter. Cruel, merciless, horrible laughter. That was my signal. I stood up slowly, took off my heels calmly, and walked barefoot toward the exit. But before reaching the door, I stopped and turned back. "You're right, Valerie," I said, taking the microphone she had set down. "I am a fool. I was foolish to trust, foolish to believe, foolish not to see what all of you are about to see now." I took out my cell phone and pressed send. On the giant screens in the ballroom, a video began to play. It was Valerie in my house taking money from my purse while I slept. Her voice was clear. "Stupid old woman, she doesn't even notice I'm robbing her." The murmurs started immediately. Valerie ran toward the screens. "Turn that off. It's fake. It's edited." But the videos continued. Valerie signing documents with my name. Valerie at the bank saying her mother-in-law had dementia. Valerie with Dr. Ramsey paying him $15,000 for the false diagnosis. "Robert!" she screamed desperately. "Do something! My son was paralyzed, watching his world crumble." "Wait," I said into the microphone. "The best is yet to come." The next recording was from the day before, Valerie talking to Fernando. "The baby isn't Robert's, my love, but he's such an idiot he'll never get a paternity test." A muffled scream went through the ballroom. Robert turned white as a sheet. "Baby?" he asked in a broken voice. "What baby?" Valerie was trapped. She couldn't deny the videos. She couldn't deny her voice. She couldn't deny anything. "But there's still more," I continued. "I'd like to introduce some special guests." The doors opened. First, George Lewis, Martin Valerie's legal husband, walked in. "Hello, Alma Patricia," he said with a Venezuelan accent. "5 years looking for you, my love, and you're still married to me." Valerie looked like she was about to faint. "No, how?" Then the real Valentina Herrera walked in alive and well. "A pleasure," the woman said. "I am the real Valentina Herrera, and I'm here to report identity theft." Then Prosecutor Ramsey, the corrupt doctor's brother, entered. "Ms. Alma Patricia Daniels, you are under arrest for fraud, forgery, identity theft, and bigamy." But the final blow came from the last person to enter. Rosa Maria Daniels, Valerie's mother. "My daughter," the woman said, tears in her eyes. "Was it worth it? Was it worth destroying another family like you destroyed ours?" Valerie fell to her knees. Her gold dress crumpled on the marble floor. Her perfect makeup ran with her tears. The mask had finally fallen. "Linda!" she screamed. "Please think of Robert. Think of your son." I walked over to her, bent down to her level, and said softly, but clearly so everyone could hear, "I did think of him. That's why I did all this. To save him from you." The police took her away that night, but before she left, I approached her one last time. "The truck was never for Robert. It was the price of your freedom, $300,000 to unmask a criminal, the best investment of my life." The ballroom was completely silent. The guests didn't know where to look. The waiters had stopped serving. Even the band was silent. Robert was still standing in the same place like a statue. Robert looked at me as if he was seeing me for the first time. There, standing in the middle of the ballroom in his $5,000 tuxedo, he looked like a lost child. The same child who cried when he scraped his knees, the one who hugged me when thunder scared him. "Mom, all this—" "You planned all this." "No, son, your wife planned all this. I just defended myself." He collapsed into a chair. The guests began to leave in silence like fleeing a funeral. In 15 minutes, the ballroom was empty. Only Robert, myself, Grace, and the lawyer I had brought with me remained. "Mr. Gutierrez," I told the lawyer, "please explain to my son his legal situation." The lawyer, a 60-year-old man with a bulldog's face, opened his briefcase. "Mr. Miller, your marriage is null. Mrs. Valerie, or rather Alma Patricia, was already married when she joined you. That means legally you were never married. And the properties, the bank accounts, everything in both your names can be claimed solely by you. She has no right to anything. And the baby. My heart ached then, seeing my son ask about a baby that wasn't his. "Robert," I said softly. "She's pregnant by Fernando, her lover. She admitted it in the recordings." He broke. My son, my strong boy, cried like I hadn't seen him cry since his father died. I moved to hug him, but he pushed me away. "Don't touch me. You lied to me too. You made me think you were losing your mind. To protect you. I didn't need your protection. I needed you to trust me. Trust you, Robert. When I tried to warn you, you yelled at me. You told me I was jealous. You pushed me out of your life. Because she convinced me? Exactly. She convinced you, so easily, so quickly, and you wanted me to trust you." The truth hit him like a slap. He stood up wobbling and walked to the exit. "Where are you going?" "To get drunk until I forget I exist." "No, you're going to go home. You're going to sleep. And tomorrow we are going to fix this mess. Together." "Together? Mom, you sold the bakeries, didn't you? That's why she couldn't find the money." "I didn't sell them. I protected them. They're still ours." Ours. They were always our son. Always. That night, I took him home. The house I had paid for, but that for the first time felt like his. While he slept off his stupor, I reviewed the papers Valerie had left behind. I discovered more horrors. Loans in my name for $500,000, contracts with phantom suppliers, even a fake labor lawsuit prepared to take more money from me. The next morning, Valerie tried to negotiate from the jail where she awaited her trial. She sent her lawyer a rat-faced guy who charged $2,500 just to come see me. "My client is willing to leave the country if you drop the charges." "No. She could say things about your son that would damage his reputation." "What things? That he was the victim of a con artist everyone already knows." "We have compromising photos." I laughed. For the first time in months, I truly laughed. "Edited photos, like the ones she used to blackmail Christina Dunn. A forensic expert already reviewed them. All fake." The lawyer swallowed. "What do you want then?" "Justice. For her to pay for every dollar stolen, every lie told every day of psychological torture. That could be 20 years in prison. Then let it be 30. 48 hours after the birthday, the divorce was complete. Well, the annulment, since there couldn't be a divorce from a marriage that never existed. Valerie was sentenced to 15 years in prison. It would have been more, but her pregnancy gave her mitigating circumstances. Fernando, her lover, fled to Colombia, where he was caught for other frauds. George Lewis, the legal husband, wanted nothing to do with her and went back to Venezuela. The baby was born in prison. A girl. Valerie's mother, Rosa Maria, asked for custody, and they gave it to her. She came to see me before she left. "Mrs. Linda, I am so sorry for everything my daughter did." "You are not to blame, ma'am. I will raise this child differently. I will teach her values. I will teach her to work. She will not be like her mother." I gave her an envelope with $10,000. "For the child, so she has opportunities." The woman cried. "You are what my daughter could never be, a true lady." It took Robert months to forgive me, not for what I did, but for how I did it, for not trusting him, for treating him like another enemy instead of a victim. But little by little, working together to rebuild the bakeries, we found each other again. We became mother and son again. We became a family again. The $300,000 truck stayed in the hotel parking lot for weeks until I decided what to do with it. 6 months after that night, I woke up early as always. It was 5 a.m. and the city was just beginning to wake. I made myself a cinnamon coffee just like my grandmother taught me and sat on the balcony to watch the sunrise. The Mercedes-Benz truck was still in the hotel lot, gathering dust and storage fees. $300,000 converted into a metal and leather reminder of the night I got my son back. Robert had changed a lot. He no longer wore the $5,000 suits Valerie bought him. He was back in his simple jeans and shirts. He would arrive at 4 a.m. at the Regina Bakery, the original to help with the first bake of the day. Just like when I was a kid, he told me one morning while we kneaded dough together. "Remember, Mom, I did my homework while you baked." "I remember everything, son. Every moment." The bakeries recovered quickly. We fired all the consultants Valerie had hired. We went back to the original recipes. We rehired the fired employees. In 3 months, we recovered 60% of our lost customers. In 6, we were doing better than ever. But the most important thing wasn't the money. It was seeing Robert become himself again. One day he called me from the historic district bakery. "Mom, come quick, I need to show you something." When I arrived, there was a line of customers around the block, all waiting for fresh-baked bread just like in the old days. "See that?" he told me with tears in his eyes. "This is what you built. This is real. Not Valerie's pretentious restaurants. This." Doña Lupita, our oldest customer, approached with her shopping bag. "Linda, I'm so glad the real bread is back, the old-fashioned kind, the kind that tastes like home." That afternoon, Robert and I sat in the office, the same one where I had discovered Valerie's first lies, and we truly talked for the first time in years. "Mom, I need to ask for your forgiveness." "No, son. Let me finish. I failed you. I traded you for a woman who promised to make me someone important. I didn't realize I already was someone. I was your son, the son of the strongest woman I know." We cried together, holding each other like when he was a child, and I was his whole world. "And the truck?" he asked later. "What are you going to do with it? It's yours if you want it." "I don't want it. It reminds me of everything bad." "Then we'll sell it." "No, I have a better idea." His idea surprised me. He wanted to auction it and use the money to create a real foundation, not like Valerie's fake one, a foundation to help women who are victims of economic and psychological violence. "We'll call it the Hope Foundation," he said. "Like your grandmother, like your first bakery, like your faithful employee." The auction was an event, not for publicity. We wanted to be discreet, but the story had gotten out. The German ambassador's wife, who had been at the birthday party and saw everything, bought the truck for $350,000. "To me, it's not just a car," she told me. "It's a symbol that women can defend themselves." With that, $350,000 plus $150,000 I put in, plus $100,000 Robert put in from his personal savings, we created the foundation. In the first year, we helped 53 women leave abusive relationships, recover their money, and rebuild their lives. One of them was Christina Dunn Valerie's ex-friend. She not only got back the $150,000 stolen from her, but with our legal help, she discovered her husband who threatened to take her children had also been stealing from her. Now she manages one of our new bakeries in Dallas. Rosa Maria Carmen, all the employees Valerie fired, are now minority partners in the bakeries. They each own 5% of the branch they manage. In 5 years, they will own 20%. Grace retired, but she still comes every morning for coffee with me. Her son Michael designed a security system for all the bakeries. "So no one can ever steal from you again, Mrs. Linda." And me, I still get up at 5 a.m. I still supervise the production. I'm still Linda Miller, the baker from the South Side who built an empire with her hands. But now I'm more. I am living proof that it's never too late to defend yourself. That silence can be a weapon. That sometimes you have to destroy everything to be able to rebuild. Valerie is still in prison. She has 9 years left. Sometimes I hear news about her through her mother. She says she's studying baking in prison, that she wants to leave reformed, that she asks for forgiveness. I don't hate her. Hate is giving her too much importance. She simply doesn't exist in my world anymore. A week ago, Robert gave me the best news. He's dating Sarah, the daughter of my notary, Rebecca, a hardworking, honest woman who has her own law firm specializing in family law. This time is different, Mom. Sarah loves me for who I am, not for what I have. And how do you know? Because I told her the entire story with Valerie on our first date. And her response was, "Your mother is my hero. I hope one day I can be half as strong as she is." Last night, while the 3 of us were having dinner, Sarah told me something that touched my soul. "Mrs. Miller, thank you for not giving up, for fighting, for teaching us that a mother's love isn't about letting her children do whatever they want, but about protecting them, even from themselves." And so my story ends. The story of how I gave away a $300,000 truck to get back something priceless. My dignity, my family, my life. If this confession touched your heart, if you know someone who needs to hear it, share it. Comment where you're watching from, tell us if you've experienced something similar, and subscribe for more stories of women who refuse to be victims. Because we all have a warrior inside. We just need to remember how to wake her up. End.